I had always believed that a family needed one steady hand, one clear voice that made the final call. In my house, that voice was mine. I didn't think of it as control, I thought of it as responsibility. My son grew up watching me plan every detail of our lives, from finances to holidays, from rules to expectations. I told myself that structure was love in its purest form. Yet as he grew older, something shifted. Conversations became brief, laughter felt rehearsed, and visits were often delayed with polite excuses. Whenever I asked about marriage, he brushed it aside, saying there was plenty of time. I accepted the answer because it fit my timeline. One evening, while sitting alone in my quiet living room, I decided to ask his fiancée directly. My tone was casual, confident, almost entitled. "So, when is the wedding?" There was a pause that stretched too long, heavy and unnatural. Then she said the words that cracked the foundation of everything I believed. "We got married yesterday." In that moment, the world didn't explode, it froze. Yesterday echoed in my head like a warning siren. My chest tightened, and I felt the strange sensation of falling while standing still. A wedding wasn't something that happened quietly. It required intention, planning, witnesses. It required absence, my absence. I replayed the conversation repeatedly, searching for sarcasm, a joke, some misunderstanding. None came. The house around me felt hollow, as if it knew something I didn't. The ticking clock grew louder, marking seconds I could never reclaim. I imagined my son standing somewhere, exchanging vows, beginning a new life while I carried on with my routine, completely unaware. Suspicion crept in slowly, then all at once. Who knew? How long had this been planned? The silence from my phone felt deliberate now, strategic. That night, sleep refused to come. Instead, my thoughts twisted into darker shapes, convincing me that this wasn't just an oversight, it was a calculated decision to leave me out. By morning, I had constructed an entire narrative in my mind. I was the betrayed father, the outsider pushed aside, once my role was no longer convenient. Every past disagreement replayed itself, now framed as evidence. I remembered my warnings about rushing into marriage, my insistence on financial stability, my questions that I believed were reasonable. In my version of events, I had only tried to protect him. Yet beneath that justification was a growing fear that gnawed at me relentlessly. What if he didn't tell me because he was afraid of me? That thought unsettled me more than anger ever could. Fear suggested power, and power suggested misuse. Still, I clung to my story because it hurt less than the alternative. Blaming them was easier than examining myself. The suspense wasn't about the wedding anymore. It was about what I would discover if I looked too closely at my own reflection. When my son finally came to see me, his posture was calm, but his eyes were guarded. He didn't look guilty. That detail disturbed me. I confronted him immediately, demanding answers, demanding justification. My voice filled the room, sharp and rehearsed. He let me speak until I ran out of words. Then he said something that dismantled every assumption I had built. He said he loved me, but he couldn't live under constant evaluation. He said every choice he made felt like a test, he was destined to fail. The wedding wasn't hidden to hurt me, it was hidden to preserve peace. As he spoke, the tension in the room thickened, transforming my anger into something far more dangerous: clarity. This wasn't rebellion. This was survival. He explained how every conversation about marriage became a debate, how joy turned into pressure, how love felt conditional on approval. He wanted one decision that belonged solely to him, untouched by expectations or arguments. His words were steady, but the effort it took to say them was visible. That was when the real thriller revealed itself. The threat wasn't betrayal or secrecy, it was the slow erosion of trust that had taken place over years. I realized I had mistaken obedience for closeness, silence for respect. The suspense that haunted me now shifted inward, forcing me to confront a terrifying possibility. I hadn't been excluded from his life. I had been protected from my own behavior. My daughter-in-law spoke next, cautiously but honestly. She said she admired my dedication, but feared my judgment. She wanted family, not conflict. Her voice trembled as she admitted she worried I would see their marriage as a mistake rather than a commitment. That fear shaped every decision they made. The realization hit harder than anything my son had said. Two people had built their future around avoiding my reaction. In that moment, the mystery ended, replaced by a chilling understanding. I wasn't the victim of a secret wedding. I was the reason it had to be secret. The weight of that truth pressed down on me until my anger dissolved into something heavier, shame. I imagined the ceremony I missed. Quiet vows, nervous smiles, hope filling the room. I pictured an empty space where I could have stood had I made myself safe enough to be invited. The psychological tension I had lived with since hearing the news finally broke. I understood then that authority without empathy becomes isolation. Control without trust breeds silence. I had demanded honesty but created fear. That contradiction cost me a moment I could never recover. Time didn't heal everything, but it revealed what mattered. Conversations became slower, more deliberate. I learned to listen without interrupting, to ask without judging. Trust returned in fragments, cautiously assembled. The missed wedding remained a scar, but scars, I learned, carry lessons. Suspense faded into reflection, and fear gave way to responsibility of a different kind, the responsibility to change. My role as a father wasn't to govern my son's life, but to walk beside it. I began to see how easily love turns harmful when mixed with control. Power disguises itself as concern, authority as guidance. But true care creates safety, not fear. I had believed my experience entitled me to decide what was best. Instead, it had blinded me to what was needed. The thriller I lived through wasn't about discovering a secret wedding. It was about uncovering the consequences of unchecked authority. Acceptance came quietly. There was no dramatic apology, no single moment of redemption. Just consistent effort, humility, and patience. I congratulated them properly, with sincerity instead of resentment. I acknowledged the pain I caused without defending it. Slowly, the distance closed, not completely, but enough. I understood that presence isn't guaranteed by title or blood. It's earned through trust. Moral: when parents mistake control for love, children learn to choose silence over honesty. Fear may produce obedience, but it will never create closeness. Missing my son's wedding hurt deeply, but it taught me something far more important. Love that demands control eventually stands alone. Love that offers safety is never excluded. My name is May. I am 54 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person I have to love and protect is myself. If you like my story, you can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. And you, what would you do in this person's place? I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard the story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time, M.